Today we are going to solve problem number 1581, customer who visited but did not make any transactions. We have two tables here. First one is visits with two columns, visit ID and customer ID. Visit ID is column with unique values for this table. That means visit ID is the primary key for this table. This table contains information about the customers who visited the mall. Next, we have transactions table with transaction ID, visit ID, and amount. Transaction ID is a column with unique values for this table. That means transaction ID is primary key for this table. This table contains information about the transactions made during the visit ID. Write a solution to find the IDs of users who visited without making any transactions and the number of times they made these type of visits. Return the result table sorted in any order. The result format is in following example. Okay, example 1. Let's see this example. We have the visits table and transactions table, and we see the output with customer ID column and count of no transactions. Let's see the explanation in order to understand it better. Customer ID with ID equal to 23 visited the mall once and made one transaction during the visit with ID equal to 12. Okay, let's see the customer with ID equal to 23. This is the customer ID with ID 23 and its visit ID is 1. Let's see if they have made any transaction in transactions table. We can see in the visit ID we have visit ID as 1. Yeah, they have made a transaction during their visit. Let's see the next ID. Customer with ID equal to 9 visited the mall once and made one transaction during the visit with ID equal to 13. Okay, customer ID 9, visit ID is 2, and this visit ID is present in transactions table with a transaction ID of 13. That means this customer has made the visit with visit ID 2 and they have made a transaction. Now customer ID 30 visited the mall once and did not make any transactions. Let's see that. Customer ID is 30 with visit ID 4. Let's see if they have made any transaction. In the transactions table, we can see that there is no visit ID 4. That means they have not made the transaction, but they have visited the mall. And we need to find the count of that, right? Let's see this again. We need to write a solution to find the IDs of users who visited without making any transactions. So this is satisfying our condition and the number of times they made this type of transactions. That means we need to count the number of times they visited the mall but they did not make any transaction. In this case, it is 1. So for customer ID 30, we have the count as 1. Let's see the next ID. We have ID as 54. Customer ID 54 has visited the mall 3 times, as you can see here. Let's see for this visit ID if they have made any transaction. Since this visit ID is present in transactions table, yes, they have made a transaction on this visit ID. But if you see for customer ID 54 with visit ID of 7, there is no record of the transaction in the transactions table. That means they have not made any transaction on this visit ID. So our count becomes 1. Same customer ID, we have one more visit ID. That means they have visited the mall again. And let's see during this visit if they have made any transaction. In the transactions table, there is no visit ID 8. That means they have visited the mall with visit ID 8, but they did not make any transaction. Now our count becomes 2. So our result should have 2 in its output. Similarly, for customer ID 96, let's see what will be our result. For customer ID 96, we have visit ID 6, and visit ID 6 is not present in transactions table. That means this customer has not made a transaction during their visit to the mall. So the count of that customer ID will be 1. Now we have understood the question clearly. Now, in order to get the customer IDs, we need the visits table. And in order to get the count of transactions, we need the transactions table. So we definitely need to join these two tables, but what type of join we are going to use? Whether it is left join, right join, or inner join. That is the question. Now let's try to understand which type of join we should use. In this case, we need the customer IDs. Let's try to do a left join. Our visits table will be on our left and transactions table will be on our right. Now it will it will have all the values from the left table. If there is a match in transactions table, those values will be present on the right table. If there is no match, then those values will be null. We need to count the number of times each customer has made a visit but did not make any transaction. If they did not make any transaction, that means the transaction record will be null for those rows. Suppose take this customer ID 54. This customer ID will have some value in this row, but for these two rows it will be null. And if we group the customer ID and count the number of visit IDs where the transaction ID is null, then that will be our result. So we can use left join here. In order to explain it better, I will try to create the left join. Let's copy this table here. And now when you do left join from visits to transactions, we will have transaction ID here, then visit ID and amount. Now for customer ID 23, let's see if 1 is present in transactions. Since visit ID 1 is present here, we will have the data of visit ID 1 here. So transaction ID of visit ID 1 is 12. Its visit ID will be 1 and amount will be 910. Now for customer ID 9, let's see if visit ID 2 is present in transactions. It's present, so the transaction ID is 13. Visit ID is 2, 970. Now for customer ID 30, there is no data in transactions table, so it will be null. Now for visit customer ID 54, let's see if visit ID 5 is present. visit ID 5 is present and it is present 3 times. So we will have 3 rows with these three records. Let's try to write it. Transaction ID is 2. It's 5, 310. Let's copy this. Now the next transaction ID will be 3, 5, and 300. Now next transaction ID is 9. It's 5 and 200. Next, let's see if customer ID for customer ID 94, visit ID is 6, and visit ID is 6 is not there in transactions, so it will be null. Now, customer ID 54, visit ID 7 is not there in transactions, and visit ID 8 is also not there. Once we have got this table, we can count the number of visit IDs whose transaction ID is null. So for customer ID 30, the count of visit ID is 1 for which the transaction ID is null. So in the result, you will have customer ID 30 with count as 1 because we have only one transaction ID as null for this customer ID. For 96 also it is 1, and for 54 we have two visit IDs with transaction ID as null. So this will be 2. Now let's write the query. Let's create the left join from visits left join transactions on v dot visit ID equal to t dot visit ID. Let's see what are the columns that we need in our result. We need the customer ID and count of the no transactions. So select v dot customer ID and t dot, we need count, right? So we will use the count function, count of visit IDs as count no trans will be the column name. We need only the count of those visit IDs whose transaction ID is null. So where t dot transaction ID is null, and in order to get the count, we need to group by customer ID. This will be v dot customer ID. Yeah, this is our code. Let's run this. This is visit. This is accepted. Let's submit it. That's it for today. I will meet you in the next one.